I want to start my thank yous because I have a bunch of thank yous. So, hi, Rifki. Right now, we have, just so you know, we have 5 people live with us here in the White Shul. We wish more of you would come and join us, but it's beautiful to be with everybody, even in the distance. And there are some people upstairs.
No, they mentioned about birthday at the Shiur.
Oh, really? That's very special. Okay, so I have a few thank yous to make. Our topic today was inspired by our very own Chaya Feldstein. So thank you, Chaya, who told me that a very good topic for Shvat, which is a time of growth and a time of planting, is the power of the growth and the planting we can do with our words and what can grow from them. So thank you, Chaya, for that inspiration. And I always want to thank Zivi Kapelowitz for coordinating all the efforts that go into scheduling this year. And I want to thank the anonymous sponsor who sponsored this year. They're not anonymous to me, but they are anonymous to you. They sponsored this year in honor of Avram Yishaya Feiner, turning 13 this week, Baruch Hashem B'siyata Dishmaya, and that's a big simcha for all of us, so that you can all have the grand, up-to-date bar mitzvah story for us. This is where we're holding right now. Avram Yishai Baruch Hashem is turning 13 this Thursday night. On the Hebrew calendar, he was born on the 9th day of Shvat. And Kimin Hago, he was born in Shvat and he had his bris in Tammuz. It looks like we will be celebrating in Tammuz. So we've scheduled June 13th, the Mir Hashem for Achnasa Sefer Torah in honor of Avram Yishaya. And again, thank you to the anonymous sponsors who are always so very good to me, you anonymous people, I know who you are, for sponsoring this year in honor of Shaya. And for those of you who were around and recall that I spoke soon after Shaya was born, just so you can figure out the dates, he was born on Tes, and I was hospitalized for 5 days because he was born C-section, and I got out on Yudalid, and I got out of the hospital, and they were doing a kenis that evening for the Zechos of his Refuah Shalema, and I decided I was going to go, and I'm thinking of maybe doing a showing of that film. I haven't done a public showing of it since then, and it was taken off of YouTube very quickly. So thank you again, anonymous sponsors, for sponsoring. And I'm going to open with a story that, and welcome. We had some more arrivals, just so you know, live here in the White Shul. Yes, we are now sitting with 7 women, Baruch Hashem, and we hope some more of you will join us live in Baruch Hashem. Next month, Mishenichnas Adar Marvin B'Simcha, there'll be more people. Oh, and why is the Shvat Shiur? What did I leave out? So when I spoke that night, it was Tu B'Shvat. And why did I leave out? Why is the Shiur so late? Because Wednesday night I was busy with something, and then Thursday night I wasn't going to give a Shiur on Thursday night, and Sunday night we don't usually do the Shiur, and Monday night Tova Lieberman from our shul got married last night, so Mazel Tov to the Liebermans, and it was a very, very safe Corona wedding, and we're here tonight, which is the right time for this Shiur to be said. Again, thank you, Chaya Feldstein, for the inspiration as to our topic. So just like we plant and things grow, the potential from speech is unbelievable. And the story that I'm going to share with you is comical, but in its impact, there's really a profound message. I have a precious Talmidah who is what we would call the classic flip out. And in her efforts to be completely flipped out, she very much inculcated into her jargon every kind of yeshivishism you could imagine. And while dealing with a shidduch question that she had, she was speaking to one of our local Rosh Yeshiva here in this neighborhood. And he very courageously pointed out to her that her manner of speech was unladylike. And she called me very, very startled. And I asked her, I said, he says, is he right? I said, a little bit, yeah. And I asked her why it is that she put so much effort into speaking that way. And it's with her permission that I'm sharing this story. She said, it's fine. And she said, because I want to talk like a Yid. And I said to her, sweetheart, talking like a Yid does not mean you need to use all the yeshivishisms. Talking like a Yid is a refinement in speech. It's choosing your words well. It's thinking before you speak. It's using Lashon Nakiya. It's not speaking Lashon Hara. That is what it means to speak like a Yid. Shlomo HaMelech teaches us in Mishlei. Mavis v'chayim biyad halashon. Death and life are in the hands of the tongue. The Sifsei Chaim quotes from Chaim of Volozhin, and he says something very fascinating. He says, we give a lot of chashivas, we give a lot of impactful notice and importance, a lot of things, and to our actions, to our maisim, possibly because we notice them, we see them, they're apparent. And we think about doing things and doing the mitzvahs in particular, because we can observe ourselves doing them as we're doing them, as we observe others doing them as we do them. But we let words just flit out of our mouth like, and they fly like a bird. And he says, words affect worlds much greater than mice. Much greater than actions do words affect worlds. Worlds. Just today, I had a fun little adventure. I've been running a very, very special new program in the tag culture this year, specific for Corona. It was my supposed to just have an idea that worked, and Hashem showed me and Siyata Dishmaya, but we run something called Weekly Chizuk Bites. And I give a shout out to two of our show members who are part of my 5-girl team. We have Sima Shapiro and Donnie Kay on the team. And I actually took the 5 girls out to Froyo today, buy one, get one free after their midterms. And on the way there, one of the girls pointed out that there was a woman walking across the street on her phone like this as she's crossing the street. So one of the girls, and I had just been preparing this year, one of the girls shouts out, well, she's just asking to be hit. I said, girls, we have a concept, al tiftach pe la satan. Don't say things like that. You could say maybe she should be more careful, but not asking to be hit. Our words matter. They make a difference. They come out into the world, and they have an impact. Rav Dessler in Chelik Daled takes me more into where I want to go with this year. And he talks about something he calls adinos hadibor, which is the first suggestion that I said to this young lady, is that speaking like a Yid is refined speech. And he says, adinos hadibor is not even talking about nivel peh or lashon hara, because that's something that's usser. Okay, it's totally usser. It is prohibited to use nivel peh, which we would say is disgusting words, curse words, and it's also to speak lashon hara. So what's adinos hadibor? And he says, shenitzrachek mibituyim gasim, number 1, that we should stay far away from sarcastic speech, from overblown speech. And it's adinos habitui, it is the refinement of expression. It is the refinement of how a Jew speaks and the refinement of expression. I'm going to give you a few examples here. We're going to look at the book that I brought with me as well. We're going to look at a few stories from the Gemara, and then I'm going to share with you a beautiful contemporary one as well. Gemara in Pesachim talks about two students who were sitting before Hillel Hazaken, and one, most of the Parshim say was Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai. And they asked the following, they were asking about harvesting grapes and beating olives to bring out the wine or to bring out the oil. And they said, why is it Botrim? Why, when we harvest grapes, we have to be, where am I? In my words, Mitneva Botrim, v'ein moskim, b'tahara. Mitneva Botrim, b'tahara, v'ein moskim, b'tahara. Why is it that you can harvest, you have to be tahar to harvest grapes, but you don't have to be tahar to beat olives? And the next one said, Mibnei boter mitara moskin betama. Why is it that you can literally harvest wine or beat in you have to be tahar, and to be harvest to beat olives, you can be tameh. And that the Rebbe said, Muftachani b'zeh, that the first one who took the time to say the extra word that eino tahar instead of tameh, shezeh yeh moreh hora b'Yisrael v'lo hayu yamim mu'atin ad shehora hora b'Yisrael. And it didn't take a long time until Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai became a great teacher in Israel. So from that little refinement of speech, the Gemara is telling us that language and your choice of words in language actually shows who you are. And he gives another example from that same Gemara. There were 3 Kohanim that were talking about what kind of gifts they got. One says, I received a small size portion. Higiani Zayas, I got a Zayas size. A Kazayas is the average size portion. And one said, Kizanav Dila'ata, I got like the tail of a lizard. They checked out the third one who said he got like the tail of a lizard, and he really wasn't a kosher kohen. In their choices of words, they were able to see that the one who says, okay, I got something small, he's not feeling so great about being a kohen, but he got something. The one who said, I got a kazayas, is choosing the choice of a zayas, which is something that is one of our shivas haminim. It's something that feeds the oil of the Beis Hamikdash. He loves being a kohen. And the one says, I got something that is the size of the tail of a lizard. Number one, we're told Shani el Rosh v'lo l'zanav, but we shouldn't be like a tail, which we'll discuss again later. That the tail represents the least important. And the lizard has a very short life. He doesn't value his being a kohen, or he wouldn't have used that word. He's mevaza, the kahuna. And recently we're talking about Avram Yeshaya Baruch Hashem turning 13. I hope I'm not embarrassing him, but our own Mordechai Holman volunteered to make Shaya a special suit for his bar mitzvah celebration that will be appropriate for someone who's sitting in a wheelchair. He came with a friend who's in design. He came with a friend to measure him. And I'm saying this publicly, but it's Lashon Nikia. But it was just so beautiful how he said it. He was measuring his pants, and he said, we'll make the pants a little wider on top because he wears an alternative kind of underwear. This is godless in a person. To just choose the more positive words. And of my Corona reading, I read quite a few fantastic biographies. I may have mentioned this in other Shiur. I read the biography of Noah Weinberg. I read the biography of Rebbitzen Young Rice. I read the biography of Rabbi Trenk. And I still have not finished the biography of the Lubavitcher Rebbe because it is quite a long, it's quite an intricately and very well written read by Joseph Telushkin. But this is something that the Rebbe was very much known for. And there's actually a whole chapter in here dedicated to optimism and the careful choosing of words. And Rabbi Telushkin is actually quoting from the Gemara in Pesachim, which I printed out for us today because he doesn't print it out. And he just says that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said a person should never utter an ugly word. The Torah adds on 8 letters just to avoid using ugly words. Okay, this is the Gemara in Pesachim, Gimel Aleph, and it's actually in the context of discussing when one searches for B'dikas Chametz, which, once the Chodesh comes, that's like not far away, not so far away. And Shmuel, in the school of Shmuel, they said that one searches for the bread when by the time that is they call or, a time they call light. And how could they call it light if we know that it's actually evening? And the Gemara then goes on to conclude that in the house of Rav Huna, Karo Leila Karo Nage, Ubisrai Rav Yehuda Rav Huna, and it was different between the houses of Rav Yehuda and Rav Huna because in Rav Huna's place they called evening the time of the light, and in Rav Yehuda's place they actually called it night. And both terms refer to the same time of day. So that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, how could they call night the time of light? Where do we learn this from? We learn this from the Torah, that the Torah says in Parshas Noach, Sharei ikem hakasav shmona osios. The Torah adds 8 letters and didn't say something not nice. What is it? Shene'emar, Noach is told to take min ha-behema ha-tahora umin ha-behema asher einena tahora. The Noach is told to take from the animals that are pure and the animals that are not pure, instead of being shorter and saying tameh. So there's an extra aleph, shin, resh, aleph, yud, nun, nun, hey, tes, hey, resh, hey. And we know the Torah doesn't waste any letters. And he says, well, most people think, this is Rabbi Telushkin right now, of words as intangible. As a child might say, I didn't do anything, I just said something. Adults think that too. The Jewish tradition sees this differently. The 3rd verse of the Torah records, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. Like gods, humans also create with words. Lest one think this is simply a hyperbolic sentence, hyperbole. Consider that every one of us at some point read a novel and has been so moved by the fate of a character in the book that we felt emotions of love, compassion, anger, and hate, and sometimes were moved to tears, even though the characters whose fates moved us so never lived. Rather, a writer took a blank piece of paper, looked at a blank screen, and through words alone was able to elicit our deepest emotions. If words are so powerful, we should be so careful with them. Even many strictly observant Jews who are vigilant about only putting kosher food into their mouths are far less careful about the words that come out of them. And he gives some examples about the Rebbe who says that both in private and in public lectures emphasize the extraordinary attention that we must pay to words that we use. And he was machmir in this in the most incredible way. He says, I first became aware of the Rebbitz's tendency to do this because he never used the term beit cholem for a hospital, a place of sick people. Rather, he would call it a beit refuah, a place of healing. And no offense to anybody who knows anybody in Toronto, but the children's hospital there is called the Sick Children's Hospital. And every time I hear it, my skin crawls. How could you call a hospital that choice of wording is just so offensive? It's so hurtful. Sick Children's Hospital, or Hospital for Sick Children. Sick kids. Sick kids, thank you, Torontonian here. The other incident that is so beautiful that they describe here is referring to the fact that when he was once meeting with Israeli soldiers who had survived, I think it was the 6-day war, who had been injured. Those people are called in Israel Nechei Tzahal, the handicapped of Tzahal. Rebbe addressed the men as follows: If a person has been deprived of a limb or faculty, this itself indicates that God has given him special powers to overcome the limitation this entails and to surpass the achievements of ordinary people. You are not disabled or handicapped, but special and unique as you possess potentials that the rest of us do not have. I therefore suggest, the Rebbe interspersed with a smile, of course it's none of my business, but Jews are famous for voicing opinions on matters that do not concern them, that you should no longer be referred to as disabled veterans, but as exceptional veterans. Mitsuyanei Sahal. Therefore, the Rebbe concluded, I would be honored to shake every one of your hands for the great honor you have given me for visiting me. He then walked over and spent time in conversation with every veteran, grasping their hands. I found quotes online, just two beautiful quotes about words that I just want to insert here. One was from somebody named Mandy Hall, but I just liked it a lot. And it's a special one. She says, your words might just be filling the empty spaces in someone's heart. But more famously, from Mark Twain, great people are those who can make other people feel that they can become great too. That's a great person. And I said we would bring up the Zana of the tale again. And I've shared this part before, but it bears being shared again and again and again. My teacher, Rebbitzen, Mrs. Tarshish, shared this part. I heard it from her years ago in a Shiur, in Shari Chesed, I think it was, where she said that we have this mission in Avos that tells us Shniel Rosh, below the Zana, that we're told to be like a head and not a tail. And then there's another Mishnah that tells us that it's better to be a Zanav Arayos below Rosh L'Shualim. That it's better to be a tail to a lion and not the head of a fox. So there is a context where it is actually better to be tail than head. And it's when you're the tail of the lion, you shouldn't be the head of the fox. And typically we understand this as meaning better to hang out with a crowd that's better than you, that's you're even the weaker in the crowd, than to be the best in a very low crowd. But she said she heard this from somebody and she actually went to the zoo to check it out. And I found pictures online that substantiate this. A lion always walks with his tail standing up, and a fox walks with its head hanging down. And I could repeat this over and over again and out, as many shiurim as I'd want to, because it's just such a beautiful lesson. Great people lift up even the lowest among them, and people who feel nothing of themselves will even put down those so much greater than them. Better to be a tail of a lion and not a head of a fox. The pettiness of a person who uses their words to bring others down. And I actually have the opportunity now, and for those of you who have been doing Nach Yomi with the OU Women's Initiative, I will be doing, I think in about 2.5 weeks, a couple of prakim in Tehillim. So I happen to be preparing this week the right perek for this class, and it's Tehillim Yud Beis, where David HaMelech talks about the dangers in speech. And he says, Shav Gidabru Isha Reyehu. It is nothingness when one person speaks to another. Svas halakos. Smooth words. So literally we would understand this as somebody who's a smooth talker. It's nothing. They're just smooth talking. They're saying absolutely something that's empty. And says Rav Hirsch so beautifully, he says, chalak is from chelak. Smoothness is rooted in the shorish, the same shorish as chelak, which is a portion. And he says, why? Because smoothness is a completed division and is smooth. There is no jagged edges. So that either things have been divided, but it's halak, so something was broken into two pieces, but it's not like shattered glass, it's just smooth. It's a perfect cut on each side, it's smooth. It's a division of pieces, but with smoothness. But he says, what does that represent to us in speech? It represents no jagged edges, no corners, nothing to hold on to. Their speech is unsubstantial. It's lashav. It's nothingness. And he says the degradation of speech is the greatest offense to moral humanity. And Onkelos tells us a person became ruach lamalala, a speaking spirit. To use your mouth to say beautiful words is using the basis of your creation. And I just want to share one more little piece about the words that the Rebbe used. And he said that the Rebbe's search for non-negative language went well beyond anything that Jewish text might have intended. He apparently believed that words with bad connotations could trigger harmful associations even in the most innocent of contexts. He avoided the word undertake, like I want to undertake to do something. Let somebody associated with the word undertaker. And not surprisingly, no matter how great the pressure to finish a project, he never referred to the due date as deadline. Once the word deadline is removed from one's vocabulary, an impossible alternative is due date. The forbidden expression connoting death replaced with a date connoting birth. And that was his way. And as a mother of a mentally handicapped child, I can plead to as many people who are listening now to please take the word retarded out of your speech. It's seriously offensive every time I hear it. Thank you, Rebbe, for your inspiration. In fact, I mentioned earlier that we pushed off Shaya's Achnasa Sefer Torah in honor of his becoming bar mitzvah to the 13th of June because that was the second Sunday in June after Shavuos, and Meretz Hashem, my in-laws in good health will go and come back from Eretz Yisrael after Shavuos. We wanted to give them time to get back into our time zone. And it is Gimel Tammuz, it's the Rebbe's yard site. Nothing is random in life. I'm just refilling my water and I'm coming back to the Zoom. I don't think they see me when I move here. They do? Oh, hi still.
Did you say the English date was 6/13?
And it's 6/13. The English date is 6/13.
How is Gimel Tammuz 1 week after Shavuos?
No, it's 2.5 weeks after Shavuos. I said they're giving them, it's the second Sunday after Shavuos. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But everything is early this year because we're going to leap next year.
Mm-hmm.
Nothingness. My husband gave me a beautiful sefer called Shabbos with Rav Pam. It's written by Rav Shalom Smith, and it's a translation of the sefer from Rav Avraham Pam Zatzal called the Noam Avraham. And anyone who ever saw Rav Pam, which I did have the opportunity to once in my lifetime, knows that there was no one sweeter, that he personified this kind of person who lifted people up in his words. And his discussion of Parshas Devarim, he talks about how Klal Yisrael are commanded to treat Ammon and Moab on their way into Eretz Yisrael, and that they may not antagonize them. And yet, we are told that when it comes to Ammon, they may not attack them, and or antagonize them, but when it comes to Moab, they're just not allowed to attack them. And he says the reason for this is because we are not supposed to attack them, because this is Lot's reward for not disclosing to Paro who Sarah was, because Paro would have certainly given him a great reward had he told them who Sarah really was, and Lot kept Abraham's secret. And this is why Klal Yisrael may not attack neither Ammon or Moab, who were literally the sons of Lot as well as the grandsons of Lot. And therein is where he says the difference in how we should treat them lies. And though Rav Moshe Feinstein in a very, very unbelievable story that he brings down does give us the reason why it was Latova, what the reason that the daughter of Lot, when they seduced their father in his drunkenness and impregnated them and became pregnant, they really thought the world was at end And that's why they did that. They wanted to continue to populate the world. And that she named her son Me'avi, so that nobody would say immaculate conception, that there was a man who fathered this child. Yet, says Rav Pam, we're allowed to provoke Moab. We're not even allowed to provoke Ammon because of that little lack of tznius in her wording, and that she didn't use lashon nikia. He quotes the Medrash in Derech Eretz Zuta, who says a refined person who speaks, a refined way of speaking, is one of the hallmarks of a Talmud Chacham. And he quotes the Rambam in Hilchos Deos, who says that the Talmud Chacham always speaks truth. This is what it means to be speaking like a Yid. Is pleasant with all, always has words of praise to share with others, avoids discussing others' shortcomings or failures. This is a Talmud Chacham. This is a person we're proud of in Klal Yisrael. And he shares such a real life example that he says Rav Pam used to mention all the time. He says Rav Pam would give the illustration of a child who is doing something naughty, and the mother yells at him and says, "You're a bad boy!" And the child bursts into tears and cries, and it takes a long time to calm him down. And Rav Pam would she say to him, "Tzadikon, what you're doing is not a good thing." He would react so differently, but by calling him bad, she essentially now labeled her child as bad. She created an entity of him feeling bad. And he writes in there, again, Rav Shalom Smith, that the message of Rav Pam was that you can cause lifelong emotional damage to somebody with your words. It is not true that sticks and stones can break my bones and words can never hurt. It's false. Absolutely false. And he says, always think, will my words cause someone pain or happiness? What will my words do? The Sefer Reshis Chachma tells us that one of the questions we need to ask ourselves, that we may be asked B'achris Hayamim, is Himlachta es chavercha alecha b'nachas ruach. Did you make your friends royal above you with nachas ruach, with calmness? The Ramban, in his opening of his letter to his son, where he discusses all the best characteristics is to make a person a true Eved Hashem, opens with Tisna'ei Talmid Ledaber B'chol Dvarecha B'nachas. Speak all your words with nachas. Be calm. The first battle action, the Ramban says, to being a productive person, L'man tatzliach b'chol dvarecha, is how he concludes his igeres, is think before you speak. L'chol adam u'l'chol eis, everybody in all times. The sign, the hallmark of a Yid is deliberate and thought-filled speech. That I think before I speak, I choose my words wisely. Going back to the Tehillim kapitel that we quoted earlier, David HaMelech says, the wicked people say, Lil shonenu nagbir, let's make our tongue stronger. Sifsosenu itanu, our lips are with us. Miyadon lanu, nobody is a master over us. I can use my tongue to do anything. And Rav Hirsch predicts a world where others grow their fortunes based on the misfortune of others. We live in such a world. Mi Adam lanu. Nobody is our master. With a word, a person could really command his nuclear unit to destroy the world. Mi Adon Lanu. Who is our master? We live in the world now of fake news, where words are just being played with, where we don't even know what to believe in. And he says, David HaMelech says, Imros Hashem, Imros Tzerufos. They're like the fine silver. They're Kedoshos, Tehoros, they're holy, they're beautiful. Because Hashem keeps what he's going to say. And he means what he's going to say, and everything he says is emes. And we have to strive to be kamo shehu, like he is. That we walk b'tzel knafecha. And I think all the time of, again, a Mishnah in Avos that we learn lo matzasi laguf tova gadol mehashtika, that I didn't find anything better for the body of a person than keeping quiet. And it's interesting because that's very good for the body. And I have a beautiful quote from Rav Goldvicht, actually said this is something that Rav Shlomo Zalman used to say, Me olam lo nechratati mima shelo amarti. I never regretted what I didn't say. But on the other hand, it says that 10 measures of speech came to the world, and us women, we took 9. And speech is what's used to connect. Speech is what's used to daven. Speech is what's used to learn. Speech is what's used to impact emunah and bitachon and comfort and love. And that's this koach that we as women have, big adol. Rabbi Yechiel Michal Stern says, the kocho shel kol lishbor kli. The koach of a voice is so strong that it can break a kli. How do we know this? Because the voice of Avner cracked a wall down in Shmuel Aleph. But I thought that quote in and of itself, the koach of a kol can break something. It can build something, it can break something. And I actually thought of this, and then he quotes, again, this is Rabbi Yechiel Michal Stern, Rav Hirsch Kopshitz is saying this. We opened with a pasuk from Mishlei, Maves v'chaim b'yad halashon, that death and life are in the hands of the lashon. He says, everyone always talks about Maves b'yad halashon, how dangerous words are, and how David HaMelech in that same kapitel says they're like arrows being shot. But we always forget the end of the pasuk, which is v'chayim b'yad halashon. Life is in the hands of the lashon. Words can impact and impart life. Your words can fill a hole in somebody else's heart. And our words create our reality. All psychology will tell us that. When we say it's all good, it can be good. When we say to ourselves or to our friends, you are wonderful, you are brilliant, you are beautiful, we can become, or they can become, wonderful, brilliant, and beautiful. When I say Be'ezras Hashem, I invoke HaKadosh Baruch Hu in my life, in everything I say. And when I get a bracha, I sacrifice even the most mundane of my acts. So in fact, we can say, Lehefech, L'shonenu nagbir. Let's make our speech stronger. Mi adon lanu. Let our brains be the master of our speech. Let's be masters of our speech. And in this Shvat, plant and build ourselves and others with our choice of words. It should be a Chodesh Shvat, Shenishma B'suros Tovos. We should hear good things and happy times. It's wonderful to be with all of you. Any questions from the crowd? Or comments? Can I unmute them? That I can do on my thing. I don't know if I can do it here.
I tell parents all the time, it's a pet peeve of mine, when they say, my child is shy, or she's,
Right.
like, no, don't say that. Of course she is. you see it? I don't know.
Yeah, this is mom.
Oh, here. There's 40 participants. It's hard to.
No? Okay, anybody, any
Wait,
questions
someone,
or
Vivian
comments?
Frank is, thank you for doing the Zoom. Oh, it went away. Someone's waving. Who's that? Oh,
Go, go, go. Anybody have any comments here?
Well, yesterday, somebody came over to me
Did you unmute it?
and she just gave me a compliment out of
Did you
nowhere.
unmute it?
She said she
No.
saw me in Shul on Shabbos. Yesterday was Monday, and she saw me in Shul on Shabbos, and she wanted to tell me how beautiful she liked my outfit that I wore.
That's so nice.
Out of nowhere. And it was just very nice. It's a nice thing to say.
Right, beautiful.